Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this live stream event. My name is Alexia, and I am the program manager of the Microsoft Reactor Toronto. I will share session resources with you in the chat. But before we begin, I'd like to quickly review two items: our code of conduct and event guidelines. First, please take a moment to review our code of conduct. Microsoft Reactor seeks to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. And secondly, our event guidelines. This session is being recorded and will be available on demand through the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel in about 24 to 48 hours. I will be sharing the link in the chat for our channel. And if you've not been on a live stream through YouTube before, please note that you must create an account on YouTube in order to access and interact in the chat. You can set that up now. And if you're unable to use the chat but have questions, feel free to reach out to us through social media on our website. Which brings us to today's session. Today is the opening keynote for the Hack Together JavaScript Azure Global Hack. I'm going to bring in our host here for today, Julia. Hey, Julia.
Hey, Alexia. Could you confirm if you can hear me well?
Yeah, very well. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, we're very excited for this first session. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Alexia, for the warm welcome. Hi, everyone. My name is Julia, and I'm a cloud advocate here at Microsoft. I work with an amazing team that will be on camera in the next few seconds to share more about an amazing and tremendous opportunity for you to learn and develop your JavaScript skills as you contribute to a real-world project. So I'm joining in from Nairobi, Kenya, that is in Africa, and I would really love to know where everyone is joining us from. So kindly on the chat, just do an intro and let us know where you're joining us from for us to know which parts of the globe are represented here today. So with that, again, I welcome you to the opening keynote for the JavaScript on Azure Global Hack. And if you're hearing about this for the first time, for the next 15 days, we will be with you guiding you on how you can contribute to a real-world open source project. And with that, I will invite an amazing team of developers, cloud advocates. We have Nitya and Natalia on the call, who will tell us more about this amazing project that for the next 15 days, you can actually contribute to. And as we proceed, we have an amazing team on the chat that will be ready to respond to any questions you have, and we'll be sharing some more resources as we proceed. So with that, I'll invite Nitya and Natalia to take it away.
Thanks, Julia. Can everyone see my slides, and can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, I'm hoping that you're seeing a slide that says JavaScript on Azure. Okay, great, now we're on. Hi, everyone, my name is Nitya Narasimhan. I'm an advocate on the JavaScript advocacy team at Microsoft, and I am in New York. I have dark hair, wearing a pink shirt and a black coat, and I'm super excited to be here today with you to launch the keynote for the JavaScript on Azure series. And I want to start first by introducing my colleague and the lead for the JavaScript team at Microsoft, Natalia. Natalia?
Thank you so much, Nitya. And I loved that accessible presentation of yourself. So I'm going to do the same. I am Natalia, and I have blonde hair, and I'm wearing a black shirt. And I'm so happy to be here with you from Barcelona, Spain, where it's already evening. Of a very hot summer evening. And before we introduce ourselves, I want to introduce the JavaScript developer ecosystem. What do you think about it, Nitya?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea. The JavaScript developer ecosystem, wow, there is an analogy I love, and I totally love that we're doing this with Nitya together, because we love to talk about JavaScript and we love to do analogies. And for me, the JavaScript ecosystem is like the universe. Do you know, Nitya, these proven theories that the universe is always expanding, it's always accelerating, it's getting larger, but it's interesting because usually things that expand tend to decrease in speed, but yeah, not the universe and not the JavaScript ecosystem. So yeah, next slide. The interesting thing about this universe also is that it hosts the staggering amount of 16 million developers. That's That's quite some developers, right? And all of them, some of them, many of them, contribute to the open source ecosystem as well, and also to the creation and documentation of standards. We make it richer, we accelerate it, like we said, we expand it even further. We are the makers of JavaScript features in the web in 1.9 billion of websites using JavaScript. So 90% of the websites use JavaScript today. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you're basically trying to say is that JavaScript is everywhere. So every one of you watching here today, you're one of those billions of JavaScript developers part of this ecosystem. But what do I mean when I say JavaScript is everywhere? It turns out it's a lightweight language that can run in runtimes that are in the browser, that are in the server, that are in your desktop, that is in the mobile, that is in the embedded systems on IoT devices. In other words, if you know how to code with JavaScript and write an app, you can have it run anywhere. And that means you as a developer can build applications for a whole host of industries: retail, e-commerce, transportation, banking, whatever you think of, right? That makes it really powerful. And as a student, as a beginner, as someone who's a career changer, there's no way you can go wrong by having JavaScript on your resume.
Absolutely. I would like to know the audience, those that are together with us today, what is the most original place where they found JavaScript? I would love to that they share that with us, because JavaScript today can even be in a light bulb. It can be anywhere. It's literally everywhere.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, there's an Arctic Hub vault with JavaScript code in it, and they sent it out to space. So there you go.
Exactly. So we have a variety of places where we can find JavaScript, and also we have our own JavaScript developer hub at Microsoft, where we can find all the resources necessary to work with our developer tools, with our SDKs, and to support our JavaScript developers in their journey to building and deploying applications to Azure, working with VS Code, working with GitHub Actions. We have the largest JavaScript developer ecosystem at Microsoft today. And again, we offer countless resources to guide you when building and integrating and deploying applications to our cloud. Yeah, maybe I forgot to mention, if you go back one slide, that you can find it at developer.microsoft.com/JavaScript, or using the QR code that you see in the slide.
Yeah, or you can also just do aka.ms/js, because we own JS. That's right. And to be honest, this is one of our favorite resources, because you can find every new series, learn paths, announcements, and more. But absolutely. I guess, are we doing a quick housekeeping for the JavaScript on Azure hack?
Yeah, I think Julia was going to join us doing this housekeeping. Julia or Bruno? Yeah, Bruno.
Yes,
the Argentinian guy.
I think she's having some issue with the camera. I see her camera flicking in and out. Oh, there she is.
Okay.
By the way, there are people who are basically saying, I love this comment here. Text helper saying, yes, without JavaScript, website will be boring.
Absolutely.
I'm not the JavaScript guy, but I agree. This is amazing. So, sorry. Julia is here. Julia,
I think Bruno, you should join us using JavaScript. But anyways, a little bit of housekeeping. So for the next 15 days, we'll be having live streams just like this one. So be sure to register for the entire series. Again, we'll drop that link on the chat. And then we have created a Learn collection for you. In case you're interacting with these resources for the first time, you will be able to have a Learn module for your self-paced experience, going through the Learn modules, getting the hands-on skills to just know how to better collaborate on this project. And then we have our GitHub discussion forum. So in case you have any questions, in case you have any feedback for us for this session throughout the project, you can join our GitHub discussion. And again, we'll share that link on the chat for you. And for everyone who submits a contribution to the Contoso project that will actually be showcased today on this call will receive a contributor badge. So I believe that will be something very exciting for everyone, especially if you're looking to join the industry. It's a good way to validate your skills. And then finally, we have this really cool landing zone on Student Hub. So you can check out all the resources that we have created for you. So again, I'll give it back to Nitya and Natalia. But in case of any questions, again, we have an amazing team on the chat ready to respond to you.
Thanks so much, Julia. And I want to say, you're all so amazing. We saw you've already been doing discussions and asking questions, and we just love it. So please keep that coming. We already know that this is the calendar of events. Today is the launch date, 16th August, and there's going to be a whole bunch of sessions. We're going to refer to some of these a little bit later. Julia, do you want to say something quickly about the reactor sessions?
Yes, so we have 6 reactor sessions. This is the first one, the opening keynote, where we have these 2 amazing speakers. Be sure to share with your friends. And then tomorrow we'll have a session on introduction to GitHub Copilot and GitHub Code Spaces. So ensure that you also RSVP for that one. Next week, we'll have 2 sessions, one on that will take you through the whole process, building your front ends using static web apps, as well as your back ends using Azure Functions. So again, be sure to join us for those 2 sessions. And then lastly, we'll talk about Azure Cosmos DB for your database and how you can connect that, especially in a complex infrastructure where you're connecting multiple and different microservices. And then finally, of course, we'll talk about AI. We'll talk about an introduction to the Azure OpenAI service, see how you can tap into the powerful models and see how you can improve your applications. So that's it for the lineup, and back to you, Nitya.
Thanks, Julia. And you know what? This is not in just like empty space. We actually are going to tell you why each of these is important as you walk through this. But first, you probably want to know who we are, why you should trust anything Natalia or I say. So Natalia, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Okay, I'll do the honor. No. So yes, I'm Natalia Bendito. Again, I lead efforts to improve, enhance, and bring to everyone those developer tools and enhance the developer experience when working with JavaScript on Azure. And I collaborate very closely with Nitya, who's going to introduce herself right now.
Sounds good. My name is Nitya again. I'm on the JavaScript advocacy team at Microsoft. Big shout out to my colleagues, Wasim, Johan, and Klaus here, who are all part of the team that built this app. And we're basically looking at how we can build the JavaScript developer audience and empower you to build apps end to end and kind of look at the tooling and do better on Azure. But before we kind of jump into our talk, I'm going to give you a minute to just go click on that repo. So go to ak.ms/contoso-real-estate/GitHub and see if you want to do a quick start. If you're going to use this for the hackathon, we'll have a checkpoint later today in this talk where we'll look at the status of it. But if you just want to make sure that your development environment is working, go try this right now. Fork the repo and launch code spaces. I'm going to leave this on for a second if you just want to take a screenshot so you remember the instructions. But we want you to get this started because it takes about 10 minutes for it to like set up the environment. And we'll come back and check in on you a bit later and tell you why. But hopefully you've all been able to grab the screenshot. And as Julia mentioned, ak.ms/contoso-real-estate-discussions will take you to a discussions tab on GitHub. So if you get stuck, leave us a message there. We're here to help. And with that, let me kind of turn this over to, or am I still going? Are we good, Natalia?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we have all the information in the README of the repo to get you started.
Okay.
So,
awesome. So now we're going to tell you why you need to listen to us, right? Like this is all great. And you might be asking yourself, this sounds really like a big deal. Like, why am I in this hackathon? What am I doing? So I want to tell you a story, right? How many of you have seen this little meme on the left, like how to draw a horse, right? This is my favorite way of explaining why we need events like this. So when you see the meme, you'll see that, it says, here's how to draw a horse. And there are these little first steps, step by step. And then suddenly you just jump to here's the full horse. And you're like, what just happened? What happened between the part where I know what the building blocks are and the part where I have this full-fledged app that is scalable, right? That's that missing gap. And this is where we need a paved path. And that is actually the purpose of the Contoso Real Estate Reference application that I'm going to talk about today. What do I mean? Think of this as, the quick starts, the how-tos, the things that you learn today, which teach you about specific services think of them as Lego blocks, right? So you've learned how different blocks work. Now you want to build the Death Star, and either you're going to need the manual that tells you put piece A, then piece B, and piece C, or you need someone to hand you a finished Death Star and say, go figure it out. That's what a reference architecture can do for you. With the sessions that you'll see at the reactor today, you'll know the Lego pieces. With a reference architecture, you'll have a finished version that you can now look at and figure out how to get from the pieces to that finished product one step at a time. And the thing that we're talking about when I talk about that reference architecture is the Contoso Real Estate sample. So what is it? It is a paved path for JavaScript developers to build an end-to-end composable architecture on Azure. Remember that term, a composable enterprise architecture, because that is what makes this particular reference implementation unique. We also want to show you how to use the best-in-class developer tools and services on Azure to build a solution. What do we mean by that? We really mean that your developer experience end-to-end will have 4 stages. In order for you to go from like, hey, I know how to use a Lego block to, hey, I've built the Death Star, you have 4 steps in between. First, define. You need to understand what are the different steps, what are the scenarios that make up this bigger solution. Next, develop. How do I start putting things together one step at a time so I'm building as I go and layering my scenarios one on top of each other? Deploy. Once I've got this built, how do I actually ship it and prioritize, and provision it and run it on Azure? And deliver. Deliver is where you're saying, now I've actually delivered my solution. How do I continue to make sure I'm applying best practices, optimizing for cost, and understanding application insights to improve my experience? So, Natalia, do you want to tell us what we're going to look at while we line up the video?
Yeah, we're talking about this enterprise application that is composable, that is using different components on Azure. But what is it really about? What are we going to be building together? What are you going to be contributing to? Let us see in a nutshell in this video.
I'm going to run it here. I think, yeah.
I love this video. Every time I see it, I'm like, it's super hyped. And it was created by one of our colleagues, and who's also the leading engineer for the project, Wasim Shegam. And have you seen that we mentioned enterprise architecture everywhere? This is a real life sample. And this is very important because, like Nitya explained before, we sometimes know how to build smaller features in isolation, but when it comes the time to put them together, this is when things start getting more complex and complicated. And we do this in response to that gap that we know, because we got the feedback from developers, from our customers. Where do I find these samples, this reference architecture? So we want to go beyond those development specific aspects and go back to that definition stage or designing stage of the architecture. So we go earlier before we start coding, and that's a conceptualization and architecture decision-making phase. And when we're talking about large enterprise-grade applications that we will deploy to the cloud, we obviously will need to do an analysis of the use cases in depth to understand what compute model will serve to run them. And compute is basically what our backend looks like, what we decide we need from a variety of solutions. Okay, that's the one that serves me better, and serve, pun intended. How do we make this decision? again, having a very, very good understanding of the use case and classifying each layer of the application. When I say layer, I say the business layer, the data layer, the data access layer, or data storage layer, the data access layer, and obviously the front end or user interfaces, and deciding what solution model and service in the cloud is the best suited to host it. For example, if we look at this diagram in the slide, say we had a bunch of full stack and event-driven workflows that bind together executing short-lived stateless tasks and also consume third-party services that we want to keep encapsulated. Following this decision-making flow, we can arrive to the conclusion that serverless services like Azure Functions, for example, and Azure Container Apps will be the right choice to host them and to run them. Right, Nitya?
Yeah. And so once you've actually taken the compute decision, the compute is actually the primary decision you'll take. But once you've done that, you have to start figuring out the other parts of your architecture. Now, if you remember seeing the Contoso video, you might remember that there was a portal app which showed you listings. It's like an Airbnb style application, right? So you're seeing rental listings. There was a blog. It's secure, so we absolutely need a place to store our keys. There's analytics that we might want to have. So all of these also bring in a second requirement, which is storage. So once you've decided what your compute is, you need to make a storage decision, right? Where do you keep your data? Where do you keep your static assets, right? So storage can be like, okay, blob storage, if I want to save all the media for my blog. Maybe I'm using Cosmos DB to store activity data for things that people do in my application. I have Azure Key Vault for my secrets. I can use I can attach a storage to save my log analytics data and so on. Azure gives us lots of options. But then once we figure out what our application scenario is, we're going to pick the storage that's best for us based on two criteria, typically. One is going to be cost, and the other is going to be how it fits within our existing compute solution, right? And so Natalia briefly mentioned serverless. So let's talk about why serverless and what exactly serverless means. So serverless does not mean no service. This is the biggest
Really?
problem.
Are you sure?
I know. The whole of last year in serverless September, we were like, serverless September means you need servers. You just don't own them. So what does serverless mean? If you have to take one thing away, serverless means take the headache of managing servers and give it to somebody else so you can focus on building your application. So what it really means is that you start using managed services in the cloud to take care of all your needs. And when you have a managed service, you actually get three benefits. The first one, which is obvious, is if you don't manage it and someone else is, the headache for maintenance, for buying new stuff, to keep it updated, all of that stuff falls on the cloud provider. You save time. But in addition to that, you get the benefit of auto scaling. So if you're a person who gets like 50 million orders on Thanksgiving, you don't have to worry because the cloud provider will scale for you to hit that, take on the load. But the minute the load goes away, you're back to the smallest footprint, which leads us to the second point. You save money. Serverless solutions are known for a very simple kind of motto. You only pay for what you use, and you only you pay as you go and only for what you use. So what can you do with serverless? It can apply to anything. The granularity of what you're running, gives you the cost. So if you're trying to run at this level of just a single function, you'd use serverless functions like Azure Functions. If you've got a whole solution that you want to auto scale, you'd use containers and so on. But let's talk about why that fits into the architecture. Now, this picture under the covers is the entire Contoso Real Estate architecture diagram. And if I hadn't put these boxes and just showed you that image, you'd be like, oh my God, this is the best car, and I only know how to build tiny little carts with Legos. Where do I go? So we want to focus on the fact that this is a composable enterprise architecture. What does that mean? As you can see, it means that we can take this big solution and break it up into scenarios that we prioritize. So if you look at the demo video, what we actually did is we build a blog first. That lets us have a UI for the blog and a CMS to store all the assets and a backend database to store any activity information we want. Then we're like, okay, now we can put in a listings portal, which is the actual portal app for Contoso Real Estate. And that lets us provide a guest experience for people who want to go and see the rentals. But now we're like, okay, we've got that, but people want to actually reserve those rentals. We better know who they are. Let's add auth. Great. You added auth, so now they can save rentals, but they still need to pay for them. Let's add payments. And with each one of these, with payments, for example, we're recognizing that we're using a third-party integration, a Stripe Payments API. How do we bring that in? We containerize it. So it shows you how to incrementally keep building your application functionality. After that, 5, 6, and 7 tell you two important things. One, this is an architecture that will never stop working for you. We'll keep adding scenarios as we go. The next one that's actually going on right now that you will see in September is you can add search. Hey, you've got all these listings. Why should I use filters? I want to just use a natural language search. Let's integrate with OpenAI and get that available to us. Check for that in September. We want to make it loosely coupled. Let's add an event hub, PubSub capability. We want to make it performant. Let's add Redis caches. So we can keep adding this up. And the basis, the kind of like the core for this is the fact that we use an API-first approach. So if you remember two things about this architecture, remember this. It is a composable enterprise reference architecture that has an API-first approach. And what that means is we actually did our API first before we wrote a single line of code. We pretty much knew how every single piece would talk to each other. And now all of us could go off into our different teams and write our own packages. And that is the essence of what we want to talk about. Natalia, do you want to talk about what the services are that are under this?
Absolutely. So we mentioned serverless. We explained there are servers, and we are thinking about different services, sometimes front-end clients that are hosted and running on those different serverless services. How do we identify them? We focus on JavaScript, and we are trying to identify those most optimal services for JavaScript applications. And we call them the hero services to build this type of composable architectures. Those that we know are the most useful to build and deploy JavaScript applications as composable architectures or on top of composable infrastructure. And we are showcasing them in this enterprise architecture because of their security, scalability, availability, and observability capabilities that allow us to optimize deployments to that enterprise grade that we mentioned before. When we start thinking about applications in the cloud as a set of components that need to be integrated together in a composable way, the services offer the most advantages in terms of functionality and cost optimization. And they make it possible for us to satisfy those requirements that we mentioned before: security, availability, and scalability. If we move to the next slide.
Before we do that, I'll also mention that there are React.
Yes, yes, Nitya, thank you so much for bringing that up. Go ahead.
Yeah, there are React sessions for all of those, so do join them. Go ahead.
Yeah. So don't miss them. Some of them are already published. Some are going to be part of this hackathon. But yeah, what I was mentioning before, cost optimization. What makes these services so optimal and gives them the qualification of serverless is that, well, again, they do have servers. Like Nitya explained before, we don't need to worry about those servers. And we don't need to worry about keeping the infrastructure up to date. We don't need to worry about keeping it secure. I wouldn't want to be the one keeping infrastructure secure on my own. I assure you. And about adding more capacity when necessary. When, again, this example that Nitya just said, let's imagine we are an e-commerce or we are managing an e-commerce application and there is a peak in sales and we have more traffic, and then we're going to need more resources supporting that infrastructure. We wouldn't want to be there adding more hardware, right? or scaling manually. We can use auto-scale. We can rely on those fully managed capabilities, and we can also scale down to 0 when we don't need that infrastructure, so it won't cost us anything. That basically reduces the total cost of ownership of an application, also known as TCO. And it goes beyond just offering the specific functionality to run the application as it is, because when we design an application and we start coding it, we start thinking about very specific features that we want to release. But when we're in the cloud, we can leverage tools like SDKs and connectors that we also don't have to maintain. We don't have to worry about patching if there is a security hack, and that allow us to build whatever our requirements and creativity demand. So Nitya, back to you.
Yeah, and hey, I'm sorry, this is 2023. Serverless apparently is not enough anymore. You also need to have AI. No, jokes aside,
Yes.
When we think about AI, we are developers, right? So when we think about AI, we're really asking ourselves, what does intelligence do for us when we come to building enterprise-grade apps? And I want you to think about this in two contexts. On the left, you see GitHub Copilot. When you think about GitHub Copilot and AI as part of the developer experience, you're really looking at how AI can improve your productivity in the developer workflow. Copilot can help you write tests. It can assist you in finding data for your tests. It can help you by telling you what that obscure function was that you should have remembered, but you don't have access to Stack Overflow. It can do a lot. So it can help you improve your developer experience. On the right, you see Azure OpenAI. That's an OpenAI service hosted on Azure. So you get all the benefits of an OpenAI with all the benefits of an enterprise-grade cloud that gives you security, that gives you guarantees on data privacy and all of those, right? But what can we as a developer use Azure OpenAI for? Think integrations. How can I integrate with that to improve the user experience in my application? So you have Copilot for the developer experience. You have Azure OpenAI for improving your application experience. And yes, you'll see little reactor symbols because those are the two sessions you must watch when you go through the Reactor Hack Together series. They will give you a sense of what each of those does and how you can use them even beyond this Hack Together session.
Quite honestly, Nitya, I think GitHub Copilot was like one more member of our team when we were developing the application. It was like we're short of giving it a name because it really made a whole difference when we were actually coding everything and configuring and deploying and whatnot.
Yeah.
So what's new on Azure? We're talking about Azure all the time. What's new on Azure that we want to showcase with this application as well?
Let's roll it. Yep.
Let's roll it, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to start off first. And it actually works out because I just talked about OpenAI, right? Turned out we do have an Azure SDK for JavaScript with focus on OpenAI. So please do check it out. If you want to start exploring how you can integrate OpenAI into your applications, you can apply for access to it, but you also have a few samples you can start from. Even before you do that, we should have the links in the chat later. There are new learning paths that I hugely recommend you take. There is an introduction to generative AI. There's an introduction to Azure OpenAI. So you'll probably hear more about these in the Reactor sessions, but the JavaScript SDK coupled with the two learn paths will give you enough to get you started on trying to integrate your first natural language-based, chat-based application experiences.
And by the way, if you go to the Contoso Real Estate app repo, you will see there is a pull request open right now with ongoing development for this feature. Because right now we have a simple search capability that we are going to be enhancing, and you can see it all live. You can see it all as we do it, and you can contribute to it as well. So yeah, amazing news for JavaScript developers and the SDK realms, but also for all Node.js developers that they can basically start using the version 20 of Node.js, the LTS. Right, I think we're going to have the public preview in September or early October. Just imagine the ability to leverage the new capabilities of Node.js within 6 months of the release. This is a commitment we have for services like Azure Functions, for example. And if we go to the next slide, there is much more that I want to tell you about Azure Functions that we have also introduced or integrated in the Contoso Real Estate application, because they have recently released the latest Node.js programming model. We were on the version 3, and now we are on the public preview of the version 4. And what does this mean? What are those new features that it has to offer? Well, if you are familiar with the version 3 or any version or any previous version of the programming model, we have made the folder structure flexible right now. So you don't have to be constrained by certain guidelines. We also give developers the ability to define certain configuration that previously was defined in the functions.json directly in the functions code. We have new HTTP trigger types, like, for example, the timer trigger that also support TypeScript. We have improved IntelliSense together with VS Code, and we also enhance or optimize the Darable functions. If you are familiar with this type of execution contests, and we already mentioned this before, they are stateless, but they also have a version where you can maintain state for whatever time necessary for your application to run. Yeah, by the way, every one of these slides also has a QR code that you can use to go to one of the learning resources.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to talk about one of my favorite frameworks. Hopefully all of you are familiar with React and Next.js. So Next.js is fast becoming one of the most popular modern web app frameworks with developers today. So it's really cool that we have support for Next.js in Azure Static Web Apps. Previously, you could export your Next.js app as a static site and then have that deployed in Azure Static Web Apps, just like anything else. Now there's support also for server-side hybrid rendering. More importantly, I think there's going to be some announcements coming up in September, so keep an eye out for that. But more importantly, we also have the ability to work with other parts of the Vercel ecosystem. Natalia will talk about that in a second. And we recently had a new feature called data connections, or database connections, I think, which allows you to work with REST and GraphQL APIs using something called the Data API Builder. So with this, with the static web apps and Next integration, and all the other tooling in the static web apps ecosystem, you can actually build really full functional apps really quickly right now. I'll also kind of just give a shout out to ak.ms/SWA/this month. If you're interested in upcoming news on that, check out that roundup. It comes once a month, and there's a live stream where you can catch up on more. But
yeah, I want to just mention that, sorry, Nita, that yes, we have the blog application in our Contoso platform is built with Next.js hybrid. It's a hybrid rendering model. And also we use this as a playground for ourselves to learn how to use the new capabilities of many frameworks. Like, for example, the portal is built entirely on Angular, and it's on the latest version, and it features things like signals, like standalone components. So we basically are innovating completely through this application. We're trying to use the latest and the greatest from the JavaScript developer world.
Actually, since you brought it up, we should put a challenge out. We've got a front end in Angular and one in like Next, right? We don't have one in some of the other languages. So, if you feel up to it, go build a Vue one or a Svelte one. We'd love to see it.
Absolutely. We would love to see, whatever you come up with, and open a pull request and get one of those, stamps? That was mentioned.
Yeah, GitHub contributor badges, yes.
Yeah, badges, exactly. Sorry. Yeah, so Nitya previously mentioned the API Builder, and we use Cosmos DB extensively across the Contoso Real Estate application. And we try to showcase many of its capabilities, like the MongoDB API and MongoDB vCore right now, which is the vector database for our artificial intelligence search capability. But again, we are going to be introducing the Data API Builder that offers out of the box modern GraphQL endpoints. We also will be introducing the diagnostic logs capability using the JavaScript SDK for Cosmos DB. It allows you to basically debug and get insights from your app database performance, behavior, issues, and then you have more effective monitoring, troubleshooting, and the chance to optimize. And finally, the Azure Cosmos DB integration again with Vercel for data management in JavaScript applications.
Woohoo.
Woo! But this piece of technology I really love, and I'm very excited that Nitya is going to talk about it.
Oh my God, yeah. The minute they said, can you play it? I'm like, sure, yes. So one of my favorite piece of technologies, and I want to tell you a little bit more about it now, but hopefully we'll be able to kind of like explore this in more detail in September and October. So what is Playwright? I'm going to start by saying we talked about a composable architecture, right? So composable by definition means different teams may work on different pieces independently, and in production, all of these get together and get deployed to make your final application. When you do something like that, end-to-end testing is critical because every team can go and test their stuff in isolation, but the end-to-end integration testing, along with the user interface and workflow tests, all of that requires a framework like Playwright. So what is Playwright? Playwright is an open source, reliable end-to-end testing framework from Microsoft. And it has two things that you should know about. First, browser automation. If you want to do a test which you want to kind of mimic the user being there, with something like Playwright, you can actually write test scripts that'll click on buttons and walk through the workflow so you can test this at scale. You can do this across browsers. It supports all modern browsers, Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit. Second, we're JavaScript, so we're going to talk about JavaScript, but you can write your tests in any of the popular languages as well. Most importantly, what Playwright provides for you is a web-first mentality. Your test will be non-flaky and reliable out of the box, and you have really awesome tools. I'm going to give a shout out to just two. One is CodeGen that can help you write your tests by just clicking. You literally walk through your app workflow and it's written a test for you. Second is Watch UI mode. It allows you to interactively debug your stuff and run it while you're inside VS Code. It is amazing. So kind of like look out for that later. But now we'll do a quick checkpoint. Is that right, Natalia?
Yeah, absolutely. We need to do this checkpoint. If you followed our advice and went and checked the repo and started or launched code spaces, you may already have the map. And we are going to try to go through a development walkthrough at the end of the presentation. But yeah, make sure. Yeah, go ahead, Nitya.
So the reason we put this checkpoint is as follows. If you had started your code spaces at the start of the stock, by now it should have got to that stable point where it's showing you a VS Code window and says, yes, it's running. This means you validated your development environment.
Exactly.
Please stop your code spaces right now because we want to save you. Like code spaces has a free tier and it's more than enough, but you don't want to keep it running. So stop it right now and you can restart it anytime and have everything come up. So just stop this right now and we can come back and look at it when we do the walkthrough. And if you had any issues during this phase, yes, absolutely post it in the discussions.
Yeah, please, let us know.
Yeah, but before I kind of hand it back to Natalia for the next one, I want to talk quickly about all this time we talked about, the architecture and the development environment, right? Let's take a little minute to talk about the developer tooling. So when we think about the developer experience, we want to author our code, like we want to do authoring with our code. So we have VS Code, we have Copilot. We want to develop it. We have code spaces. So all the members of the team will have the exact same development environment. We want to test end to end. We have Playwright. Okay, great. We did everything. Now we need to deploy. This is where we have one of the best, most interesting tools I've seen come out of Microsoft in the past few years. That is Azure Developer CLI. And I'm going to turn it over to Natalia so she can tell us a little bit about deployment guidelines, and then we can talk about that particular tool.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention that, of course, having this full composable architecture built on top of multiple applications and services, and we emulate it, we run it in a development environment, as code spaces. It makes a great difference in getting up to speed, in collaborating with other team members of the or members of our teams, even if they are geographically distributed. We can have the certainty that everyone is on the same page, right? Everyone has the same development environment. And that's what code spaces does. It makes it easy to collaborate, to develop new features, to debug, to test. But what about publishing these composable architectures or infrastructure? When you see it, and if we remember in our minds that map, that architecture diagram, of course, when you think about provisioning and deploying all that and making it right in a way that is secure and compliant as well, it feels like it's kind of difficult, right? And this is when we want to have a tool like the Azure Developer CLI. It really enhances the developer experience when it comes to provisioning and deploying applications to Azure. It relies on an infrastructure as code or declarative programming written in domain-specific languages like Bicep, or using Terraform with the Terraform provider, and it bundles together what we call templates for provisioning and deploying. And back to Nitya on the templates.
Oh yeah, we love templates. So one of the reasons I kind of put this up there is that, when you want to, we talked about this, right? We want to build complex architectures. You know how the little blocks work. Wouldn't it be nice if you could get more than one reference implementation, right? So if you go to ak.ms/awesome-azd, that is a templates gallery. It has a whole bunch of GitHub open source repos with these templates in them. So you can select one of them, literally go from the template into code spaces, and then run AZD to have it deployed to Azure. So in 3 steps, you've discovered an architecture, you've instantiated its implementation, and deployed to Azure straight from there. And Contoso is actually the reference example that they've provided for enterprise and JavaScript, as you can see. But definitely go check this out. And if you want to understand what infrastructure as code is for different languages, you can also go look at these examples just to see what their Bicep or Terraform templates look like.
And they have some amazing templates for OpenAI as well, for intelligent
apps.
Forget.
Yes. Yeah. I think in fact this one is the first one was also an OpenAI one. Yeah.
Absolutely. So with the Azure Developer CLI, you have full control over your application infrastructure. You have version control. It enables you to repeat and reuse templates as you move from one environment to another, and you can go from your VS Code or your editor to a production environment, running just one command. Just imagine that, right? ACD app, and it will build, it will provision, it will deploy the whole application, and it will also generate secrets, for example, when they are not manually configured. So you may also want to use ACD to generate your CI/CD pipelines across your application.
So while we're not covering it in any of the series here, if you do want to get started with AZD and you want to understand how that works, super important one, it's going to be one of the most powerful tools you'll use on Azure. There's good news. First of all, you can go to their documentation site, and there is a tutorial that'll teach you how to deploy an existing AZD template. And the example they give you is actually with a Node.js or Azure Cosmos DB app, which is perfect if you want to understand it before you dive into Contoso. But wait, there's more. They just released a 3-module learn path. The link is on the right. And what that teaches you, once you've learned how to use an existing AZD template and deploy, if you go through the path, you will learn how to build your own. So the next time you write an app, not only will you give people the code base, but you will actually give them the configuration file so they can deploy it on Azure the exact same way that you did.
Absolutely. So yes, to recap, visit our repo on GitHub, give us a start, launch it in code spaces, and get involved. This is the most important part. We want to collaborate with you. We want to interact with you. And this is an open source initiative. So open source always welcomes contributors and contributions. There are many ways to contribute. You can help us backbash. You can suggest new features. You can develop these new features with new frameworks that we don't have represented right now. There are contribution guidelines. We invite you to review them. And yeah, we hope that you open a pull request quite soon.
Yeah, and I'm also going to go back to the analogy we made with Lego blocks and say, when you walk through this, think that you're basically trying to figure out how it works by, like digging in and deconstructing it. But after that, there's no reason you need to build the same thing. You can take that and say, well, it would be really nice if the Death Star had, I don't know, a telephone, and stick that in there. What I'm trying to say by this is come up with a feature, build it, learn from this, and actually contribute something back that could be completely new, and it would still be amazing. We'd also love to see you write about your experience. deconstructing it, because not enough people know how to work with open source. So it's a great way for you to share your experiences working with an open source repo.
Absolutely. Any kind of written content, videos, streaming, we will support you in your journey to being part of the Contoso Real Estate app. And I would like to ask our team if we should be taking a Q&A, because if there are questions that the audience would like us to answer right now, we are very open to it. Otherwise, we also have a set of videos that we can publish somewhere else later for them to see.
Yes, so let's wait until Julia gets her camera back. Bad day. I know that's happening in Keynote day. But yes, there are a couple of interesting questions. By the way, I have a lot of people here. I'm going to show a couple. JV said he loved the session. Super cool analogy. I can't remember which one. I think it was Nitya doing something amazing fun there. Then again, amazing video. People love the video. After the video, people get super excited. They want to do more. And we talk about the slides. We are going to share the slides. People are going to get a Reactor email with the link for the slides. And hey, I like a couple here. So Bilan asked the chances to do a front end in Ruby on Rails, which I just learned that ROR means Ruby on Rails. And I know that we have some support for Ruby in Azure. So we will probably need to pack some resources and publish how people can do Ruby on the cloud. And hey, if someone wants to make a front end, that's good.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because this is exactly the I think the best part of composable architectures. You are not limited by any kind of technologies in your stack. You have an API surface, and then you can build your client and your backend in whatever you are more skilled with. So it can be Ruby on Rails as well. We love JavaScript, but
I'll also throw in the thing that says, hey, if there isn't a Ruby on Rails AZD template, you should create one and become the first person to put the Ruby on Rails tag on that gallery. So do it.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's a good one. That's I like that. I like that one also. Then, because we are in the developer journey here, John asked, and he knows the answer. He's a student ambassador, but as an open, if CodeSpace is available for everyone. And yes, if you have a GitHub account, you have access to CodeSpaces and more. I can't remember the details. I can't remember the numbers.
I'll tell you this one, because we actually had to put this in there. This is just a fun fact. I have a 14-year-old who does not have a credit card, and he was able to start CodeSpaces on his GitHub account. So you can actually activate it. But I think what I remembered from this, if useful, is it works. You have a free tier that will be activated if it's a public repo. If it's a private repo, you will need a paid plan. And the most important thing is that you got to watch your free tier quotas. It's very generous, but that doesn't mean you should eat them up. And the easiest way to do that is to set up constraints in your settings. You say, hey, if I've been idling for 10 minutes, stop it. If I've left, whatever. And it maintains the state for you. So it's really quickly, it's easy to come back from it. Just a quick kind of like a comment that in the README for the Contoso app, we have a section called usage costs, which tells you more about the CodeSpaces requirements.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing. Didn't know. And by the way, if you want to access your CodeSpaces, super easy. github.com/CodeSpaces. You will see there, right click or 3 buttons click. I can't remember. And then you have stop or activate, because yes, if you leave the CodeSpaces live, they are going to use your hours. Then, oh my God, there are so many questions here. Let me go to a couple good. I like this one. So, can we deploy both front end and back end on Azure? I know the answer for this one, but I will let you know. I will let you answer this one.
Yeah, of course. Of course you can. We have our backend on Azure Functions. We have a backend for one of our services in Container Apps, in Azure Container Apps, and the front-end applications that are hosted, one of them in Container Apps, another one in Static Web Apps. So we have the full stack also emulated in your CodeSpaces, but then ready to be deployed to Azure.
Awesome. Yeah. And I see we have Julia here. Hey, Julia, I have one for you. And I think that you have the answer somewhere here in the comments that Visay. Sorry if I kill your name, Visay. Sorry, I'm very bad with names and pronunciation. Is there a Slack, Discord, or Discord server for the hackathon? Want to share something, Julia, about this?
Yeah, that's a good one. So we actually have a GitHub discussion forum, and I believe the link is on the chat where you can join and network with Microsoft experts. Everyone on this call is actually on that discussion forum, and we also have other developers participating. So yes, feel free to join the GitHub discussion.
Yep, I just put the link to the GitHub discussions on there as well. It's in bright pink. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we probably want to wrap. So
yeah, I just want to mention quickly, the walkthrough we were about to do is all described in the project README. So if you have any issues with it, if you cannot start it for any reason, let us know, participate of the discussion. This here is the team that has contributed or are the core maintainers of the Contoso Real Estate app, and also the hackathon team. Thank you very much for hosting us and giving us this space, and also putting this application, for everyone to be part of.
Yeah, and I'll also give a shout out to dev.to. So all of us are publishing stuff on dev.to/. If you kind of go to Azure, you should see it there, but you can also see there'll be a tag for the Contoso Real Estate app. So in September, keep an eye on it. There's going to be a lot more coming that'll help you kind of like, really have fun exploring this sample.
Right.
Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, Nitya, Natalia, I know you want to wrap up, but there's a question I got earlier today. So someone reached out and said that this is their first time contributing to an open source project, and they were asking for a few tips. So I don't know if you can just share a few tips, particularly for this project, for anyone who's contributing for the first time.
Nitya, do you want to take this?
Oh, okay. If I start, I'm going to ask people to come do stuff for my things. But anyway, I'll tell you 3 tips from my perspective, not just for this app, but in general, because if you're a first-time open source contributor, first and foremost, don't do as I do, but do as I say, first of all. But go and get yourself a README in your profile. Make sure that you have a GitHub README that describes who you are. So when you contribute to a project and people come looking for you, they see who you are. You can go look up any of well-known, GitHubbers to go check it out, but create one for yourself. Second, in terms of contributions, there is actually a tag that I believe Wasim set up. Natalia can talk about it, which will kind of tell you what are good first issues. Very selfishly, I'll say that I also would love to see people contribute to the documentation. If you're interested in writing technical documentation or writing tests, let me know. I'll hand it over to Natalia to talk about good first issues that you can target. But the last and third part that I'll say is writing content is as much an open source contribution as it is to actually create stuff. So what that means is submit issues, start discussions, say, hey, wouldn't it be nice if you had X, Y, Z? Every one of those things helps make that project better. Natalia, maybe you could talk about like Contoso specific.
Well, yes, we have. Very quickly, we have this first good issue label for all of the issues in Contoso, but you can open your own. The only thing I can recommend is don't be afraid. We all love contributions. There are no bad contributions to open source ever. And like Nitya said, it's not only code, it's content, it's resources, it's, a stream showing what you're doing. There is not too much contributing to open source ever. So I hope you feel encouraged and we start seeing your pull requests and your links to content.
Actually, that's a great idea. Maybe we can ask Julia if under discussions we can put a topic for first-time contributors where you can just hop in and kind of, say whatever you like and we'll cheer you on.
Yeah, definitely. I would love that.
That's a great idea. And hey, we are on time. I want to be respectful with everybody's time. This was amazing. And again, don't be afraid to contribute, to ask questions, to more. This is what we want to do. This to everybody can have a chance to learn a lot of stuff. This is really amazing. And Julia, do you want to remind us what is the next session? When is the next session? And who is going to be there?
Yes, so the next session will be tomorrow, same time. We'll have a deep dive into GitHub Copilot and GitHub Code Spaces. So I've seen a few questions on that. So probably tomorrow's session will cover all that in depth. Otherwise, for now, please do join the GitHub discussion. We'll share all the resources that have been presented today. And if you have any questions, any ideas, we are more than happy to hear from you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and the final one, we share the link, sorry, somewhere here. There is a link in the comments of a survey. Please let us know about the session. What do you like, don't like? What can we do better? What do you want to see next? We are really here to help. And hey, once again, Julia, thanks a lot. Natalia, Nitya, thanks a lot. Also, I'm looking forward to see the ideas, the feedback, everything that we're going to have in the next couple of weeks. So I'm learning, and I am in the learning phase here for me.
All of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.